A service of KIBMradio.com, the Internet's home for an all old-time radio.
Today, we present The Second Mile, a drama inspired by a teaching spoken in the Sermon on the Mount and set down in the 5th chapter of the Gospel according to St. Matthew, a teaching from the greatest life ever lived. Province of Galilee, these are troublesome times. For the Galileans, a people of great pride in their heritage, grow more and more resentful under the occupation of Caesar's armies. So it is not so strange that on this day, in what seems to be a peaceful household in the town of Bethsaida, the woman of the house comes upon an object which startles her, and with great fear she calls out to her son,
Daniel! Daniel! What is the meaning of this?
What is it, Mother?
This dagger hidden on the shelf.
Oh.
Daniel, what does it mean?
It can mean only one thing, Mother. We are getting ready. One day you will see such an uprising as this country has never seen before.
God have mercy on us all. Remember what happened to your father.
There's nothing I remember better. The day they brought him home. Dead. Because he had fought the tyranny of the Roman invaders. I'll remember that day forever. Remembering is not enough. We must do something. Even if it means we must die in the process.
My son, you think you are very brave because you were able to say that. Let me tell you that sometimes it takes greater courage to live with hardship than to avoid it.
A whole generation of us is growing up who won't live with it. As far as I'm concerned, every Roman soldier I meet is my father's murderer.
Daniel, you cannot talk that way.
Would you rather I were as cowardly as my Uncle Raphael? He is so frightened of being related to us that he refuses to recognize us.
Your uncle was very willing to give us money to tide us over this bad time.
Give us money. Like a bribe. As though he were saying to us, take the money, but stay away from here. I can't have Daniel seen in my house or in my shop for fear the Romans will discover that I am related to you. But I do not want his bribe, and I do not want his charity.
Oh, my son, how easy it is to be proud. But I pray that someday you will learn differently. You will learn that there is great value in humility and forbearance.
The only day I am interested in is the day we rise up and kill them all.
Someone may have heard it.
I don't care if they do.
One moment, please. One moment. Yes? Is there anything I can do for you?
Is this the house of the widow Leah?
I am she. What is it you wish?
I have been asked to give you this parchment.
Parchment? Who is it from?
It explains itself. I was asked merely to hand it to you. Now I must go. Here.
Thank you.
Mother, what is it?
Parchment scroll. One moment, I will see.
Well, Mother, what is it?
And you thought your uncle was avoiding us. Listen to this. And so, my dear Leah, you may be sure that I realize your plight, and if you will have the boy come to see me in the late afternoon tomorrow, I will talk with him and do what I can for him. With my affection to you, sister-in-law, and to your son.
Yes, but he didn't sign his name because he was afraid that the parchment might fall into Roman hands. No, I do not think I would like to work for a coward.
You will not talk that way about him, Daniel. Your uncle is a good man. He works hard. And if he fears the Romans, it is because they are to be feared. What does a man accomplish by spilling his own blood? What did your father accomplish?
I'm sorry, Mother. I know what this does to you. I will go and see him tomorrow, Mother. Believe me. I will go.
And Daniel, you'd better wash your face.
But, Mother, I've already washed it twice.
I'm so anxious that you make a good impression on your uncle. This is so important to us.
The only reason I'm going there is for your sake. I will never be able to respect him as a man. But I will bite my tongue and work hard in order that you do not have to work. But don't ever make the mistake of thinking that I want to do this.
If only you would come to understand one thing that your father never understood. But then, he had never seen the master. If you had heard him speak, things might have been different.
No one would have changed my father. He was too strong and too proud and too brave.
I like to think that the master would have changed him. Would have been able to show him that there is a way to overcome hatred and tyranny. Not through bloodshed, but through love. Not by resisting what we are asked to do, but by doing more than we are asked to do. That is the master's way. Yes, my son, I hope you will be as wise a man than you thought of us.
No one could have been wiser than he was.
It is time, my son, to put on your cloak and start out to see your uncle. And if you could just think about what I have heard the master teach.
I do not wish to think about it, Mother.
Then here, let me help you put on your cloak. I have washed it for you, and it is fresh and clean, because I want you to look your best. And you know how strict your uncle is about everything, especially about being prompt. You are to go from here straight to his place.
I know, Mother.
Then go. And may God go with you, my son. May he make your uncle well disposed to you.
Well, Naaman, what do you think? What should I do? Ratio, if I were not your friend, I would need more to answer. It's not that I don't want to help my nephew, Daniel, but after what happened to his father, if the Romans find out that I'm his uncle, they might put me out of business. They might even send me to prison.
What if this boy, Daniel, were to change his name so no one knew he was your nephew?
Oh, the boy is as stubborn as his father was, and proud. He wouldn't do that. Even when I offer him and his mother money, they turn it back to me. They won't have charity, they say. So how can I help them?
Wait. You say you sent a message asking the boy to be here this afternoon.
Yes, I felt I had to do that much. But after sending it, I began to have qualms and worry.
Raphael, perhaps the boy will solve the whole problem for you.
What do you mean?
He might say something that would give you a chance to say that he's not right for the job. Or better still, he might come late. So you could say you must insist on a boy who's prompt. Well, there are all sorts of ways to let a boy talk himself out of a job.
And this boy is my own nephew.
And yet the Romans, Raphael?
Oh, what a terrible thing to do to one's own flesh and blood.
Raphael, whoever said that a coward's life was pleasant or easy?
Jonathan.
No, Daniel. Where are you going all dressed up in your holiday cloak on a weekday?
I'm going to see my Uncle Raphael. So don't detain me because I might get a job.
Really? Well, in that case, go on.
Will I see you later? Of course. I should be back before nightfall. What's the matter, Jonathan? What's going on over there?
I don't know. Let's go see. Come on, Daniel.
I don't have the time.
Come on, Daniel. It can't take long.
All right.
You see anything, Daniel?
No, not yet. Oh, there's a Roman soldier in the middle of the crowd.
Oh, yes. Daniel, look. Look at that.
Making that little boy carry his shield. I suppose it's a big joke for the Roman.
It's the Roman war. Any soldier can make any of us carry a shield for 1 mile. And there's nothing we can do about it.
That's the kind of thing we'll make them pay for one day. If it isn't going to help that little boy now. So there might be a way. What can we do? I have an idea. Roman! If you're so tough and strong, why can't you carry your own shield?
Can you? We won't get into trouble that way.
Well, not if we can get the rest of the crowd to shout at him. I've noticed you can make those Roman soldiers back down sometimes if you make fun of them. Someday we'll not only carry your shield, we'll carry you on it. Quiet!
You think this boy's too small to carry my shield, do you? Well, you may be right. Here, boy, give it back to me. That's right.
It worked, Jonathan. I don't like the look on that Roman's face, but he let the boy go. That's what counts.
Now, don't any of you get the idea that I'm going to carry this myself. Oh, no. The law says anyone can be commanded to carry the shield of a Roman soldier. And I'm here to see that the law is carried out. Especially on a hot day. So, let's see who's going to be the next to oblige me. And this time it won't be a young lad. It'll be an older one. Say, you, for instance.
Daniel, he's pointing at you. Me. But I've got to be at my uncle's place by noon, not me.
You! Dressed up like you were a prince of Israel.
But I can't.
You'll be surprised how well you can when I get done coaxing you. Say with the butt of my spear.
I've got to go to see my uncle. It's important. Very important.
Is that so?
Please, sir. I'll take his place. But then you'll go and I'll carry your shield for you.
Well, noble sacrifice from friend to friend, eh? Very good. But not good enough.
Why not?
He's the one I picked, and he's the one it shall be. Here, my fine young prince, take my shield. Take it, I said.
You filthy Roman dog!
Oh, a spirited rebel, eh? Wow. Dog? Filthy? There now. What do you say to that?
Don't I get another one for calling you a Roman?
You'll get the right end of the spear through your filthy hide if I hear another word out of you. Take up that shield. Take it up.
Please, Daniel, do it. You'll kill you if you don't. Do it. For your mother's sake. All right, Jonathan.
That's better. I'll start walking. In that direction.
How much farther?
I figure you've only gone about half a mile. Don't be so impatient.
Look, I could run the rest of the way.
Could you? You mean you could run all the way to headquarters? That's where I'm going.
Wait, how far is that?
A mile and a half.
The law says I only have to carry your shield a mile.
Oh, you could volunteer to carry it the rest of the way. And if you ran, you might be free earlier than if we walked the rest of the mile.
But that isn't fair. A mile is a mile.
Oh, I see. Well, if you can't appreciate a bargain when you see one, I'll do this my own way. Wait here.
Thanks. Why?
See that inn? That's where I'm going. To get me a cool drink.
Oh, please, sir, you'll be delaying me. I might still get to my uncle's on time if you don't...
I'm going to go you quoting the law to me. A mile, you said. Well, let's stick to the law. We'll go a mile. But the law doesn't say I can't take my time. And right now, it's a cool drink I want. And that's just what I'm going to get. Wait here.
Please.
Wait. And don't try to run off because I know your face well by this time. I'll be able to identify you anywhere.
I know.
Good. I'll be back. Don't you move.
Sir, what's going on? Why is a crowd gathering?
Only one person could gather such a group of followers. The master.
Yes, boy. The master. Look at him. Look well. For you'll want to remember this day the rest of your life.
Look, say the Lord doesn't say I have to talk to Romans.
I see. Doing your mile and resenting every moment of it. Is that it?
Anyone who wears the uniform you do should know better than ask a question like that.
You know, lad, I don't blame you for resenting me.
You don't?
But I say this to you. As long as you're here, you might listen to him. He teaches so many wonderful things.
I've heard about him many times, but I've never seen him.
Then look. His face. Have you ever seen such a face before? And his eyes. The understanding of the world and all its people is in those eyes.
Yes, I can see. In fact, I can understand now what my mother means about him. What are you talking that way about him for? You're a Roman. He doesn't preach to you.
No one wants to understand. My boy, he preaches to all who listen, even Romans. And what is more, when my servant was sick, the master did not ask if he was a Roman. He cured him because he was a man, a human being.
He cured your servant?
When all of us had given up hope for him.
Really?
Yes, my boy. So listen to him. For he has a great deal of wisdom and... Wait.
What?
Boy, he's looking at you.
Hmm. Why?
I don't know. But he is looking at you. And he's going to speak. To you, I believe.
You had heard that it has been said, an eye for an eye, and a tooth for a tooth. But I say unto you, that you resist not evil. For whosoever shall smite thee on thy right cheek, turn to him the other also. And if any man will sue thee at the law, and take away thy coat, let him have thy cloak also.
Why does he say that to me?
Listen, boys, he will explain.
And whosoever shall compel thee to go a mile, go with him twain.
Did I hear right? Did he say to go 2 miles instead of 1?
Yes, lad. Go with him the 2nd mile, the master said.
That's what my mother always says. His more than is required.
Your mother must be a good woman.
Oh, she is, sir. And I've heard the master say the same thing. Somehow when I hear him say it, it means more. It means...
Yes?
Oh, I'm sorry, sir. I must go now.
But why, boy?
There comes the soldier. This is his shield. I'd better go. It's my duty.
Yes? You must do what the law says. But remember, lad, the master spoke to you today, and that is an honor you will cherish the rest of your life. And he spoke of your spirit, of overcoming hatred, of conquering revenge, of wanting deep inside to do more than is required. Remember that always. Remember, too, that because of him, you spoke to a Roman today. And discover that even a Roman can be a friend.
Look, soldier, it's beginning to get pretty cloudy and black. It's going to rain soon.
Don't you think I know that?
See that lightning? It will rain and we're on the outskirts of the town.
And if we are?
If I get caught in the rain, my coat will be wet and dirty. I can't go to see my uncle that way. He's a very finicky man. He might deny me the job because of something like this.
That's no worry of mine. You keep walking.
I'll teach you to quote the law to me. Keep moving.
Don't you even have a little consideration for what this might mean to my mother and me? Have you never gone hungry?
Now, look, boy, I'm getting sick of your words. Just keep quiet and keep walking. There comes the rain now. If I get my helmet wet, I'll have to spend the better part of tomorrow polishing it.
Then wouldn't we both be better off if we could turn back and take shelter at some house till it stops?
There's no need for that because I'll take your cloak to cover me.
My cloak? Sir, please. No. She herself would say so. Here, sir. Take it.
Now you're making sense.
And, sir.
Do you have something to say?
Yes, I have something to say. Here. Take my coat, too.
Your coat? What for?
Because the master said so. My mother said so. She said one can be free that way. Take it. Take it, sir.
Look, boy, I figure your mile's about up now. I'll carry my shield the rest of the way to headquarters myself. You can go see your uncle now.
This late hour and looking this way, my sandals and feet caked with mud, my coat and cloak soaking wet and dirty. Wouldn't do any good to see him now.
Well, don't trouble me with your tale of woe. Just give me my shield. You go back to town.
Tell me, how much further is it to your camp?
About another mile. Why?
I will go the rest of the way with you. I will go the second mile.
The second... Are you out of your head?
Well, didn't you say before that I could volunteer without breaking the law?
Yes.
Well, that's what I'm doing. I'm volunteering to carry it the rest of the way.
As you say. But don't forget you volunteered. You can go back now. It's only a short distance.
I said I'd carry it the rest of the way, and I will keep my word.
First, you fight like a demon not to carry it at all, and then you decide to carry it 2 miles. I wish I could understand you.
You don't have to understand me. Just say it's something I wanted to do because he said so.
He? Who is... Get off the road, boy, if you don't want to be splattered with mud worse than you are now.
Doesn't make any difference.
Get out of the way. You're going to save your neck. It's a Roman chariot. It'll run you down and kill you. Hello there. Oh. Sorry, sir. Yes, sir. Salute, boy. That's a centurion, an officer. Salute.
Yes, sir.
Say that, haven't I seen you before?
I don't think so, sir.
Back there in the town where the master was speaking?
Oh, yes, sir, that's right. You were the officer who spoke to me.
Yes. Now, what are you doing here, and why are you still carrying that shield?
Oh, please, sir. He volunteered to carry it.
I know that you soldiers impose on the population, that you threaten them with all kinds of punishment if they don't carry your shield further than the prescribed mile. That's true in this case. You know what will happen.
Yes, sir. But it isn't true, sir. Ask him. Is it true, boy, is it? Now, tell him, please. Tell him. Well?
No, sir, it's not true. I volunteered on my own.
Thank you, boy. All right, soldier, you may go now. But carry your own shield the rest of the way. I want the boy to remain here.
Yes, sir. Boy, let me have the shield. And here's your coat and cloak back. And thank you. Thank you very much, boy.
Now, lad, come here.
Yes, sir.
Your coat and your cloak. And you did volunteer to go the second mile.
What of it, sir?
So what you heard him teach took effect. I'm glad, for your sake. It was a good thing you did. A thing calling for a great deal of real courage.
Courage? I had courage I would have got to see my uncle no matter what. After all, it would mean so much to my mother.
Your uncle, your mother, I don't understand.
Doesn't make any difference now. Look at me. Well, I'm going back to town, if I'm free.
Wait, I take you back in my chariot. If you'd let me.
If I let you? That's the first time I ever heard a Roman ask and not command.
Well, then?
All right, Roman. I'll ride back with you.
So, you see, Rachel, most of the problems in life have a way of taking care of themselves. Your nephew doesn't arrive here, so you don't have to turn him away without a job.
I almost wish he had come. At least I could have given him some money. Pride or no, I could have found some way to make him take it.
Well, now it's no longer your fault. Rachel, look, a Roman chariot. It's stopping right here in front of your place.
Romans, they've come for me. And it's that boy's fault. I knew one day he'd get me into trouble. What'll I do?
What can you do now? Come in.
How do you do? Which one of you is Raphael?
I am Raphael, but sir, I've done nothing wrong, nothing.
Is this boy your nephew?
Is this boy?
Yes.
Yes, sir. I might as well admit it.
Admit it. It is something of which you should be extremely proud.
What did you say, sir?
He's a very fine boy, and from what he told me on the way here, I should think you would be delighted to find a place for him.
Sir, do you mean you wouldn't mind if I gave him a job?
Mind? I would most heartily recommend it.
Did you hear that, Daniel? He recommends it. He said it would be all right. Isn't that wonderful? Well, you will start at once and for a fine wage. Did you hear him, Daniel? Well, Daniel, have you nothing to say?
So many thoughts rushing through my mind, I cannot speak all of them. But I think the strongest one is that my mother will not have to work anymore. And I will be able to provide her with many things we've been forced to go without since my father died. Yes, Uncle, I think that is the most important thing.
Is it, boy?
It must be, sir. I know that right now the first thing I want to do is rush home and tell her. I want her to know, and I'm sure she will be as happy as I am.
If you would really make her happy, my boy, tell her that you saw him and heard him teach.
Yes, sir.
And even more important, that you found within yourself the courage to follow his teaching.
I think she would want to know that more than anything else.
I suppose you doubt what we say, but let me say it is something the Master taught. It shows us the difference between acting out of fear and acting out of courage, between facing the world with love and facing it with hatred, by doing what is required of us, not grudgingly, but happily, and doing even more than is required. Right, lad?
Yes, sir. And maybe the proof of how right the Master's teaching is that you, a Roman, and I, a Galilean, can agree about him. You know, sir, I think my mother will be happy to hear about that, too.
Hello, this is Father Bob Warren of the Franciscan Friars of the Atonement. Thank you for listening to this rebroadcast of the Ave Maria Hour radio show. The Friars' popular Ave Maria Hour was first brought to the radio airwaves in 1939, recorded in New York City and on the mountainside grounds at Graymoor, a home in Garrison, New York. These timeless classic stories of the Bible and the lives of the saints came to life each week through dramatic reenactment by professional actors and actresses. You know, friends, Christ once said, "Do not hide your treasure under a bushel." In saying this, he meant share your gifts, share your talents. The Friars of the Atonement feel the message in these broadcasts remains as powerful and timely as when they were originally aired, and we are so happy to be able to share them with you today. To learn more about the missions and ministries of the Friars of the Atonement, I invite you to visit our website, www.atonementfriars.org. In the meantime, sit back and enjoy this rebroadcast of the Ave Maria Hour.
The third station of the cross. Jesus is condemned to death. The heavy cross is placed on his back, and he takes the first few steps toward Golgotha, and then he stumbles. He staggers from side to side in the narrow street, trying to regain his balance. And then he falls headlong, his face buried in the dust. He lies there, gasping and choking, held by the heavy cross that is toppled across his body. That true cross, which has become the symbol of faith and hope and glory for all those who now come to the third station and look upon the fallen Christ.
We adore thee, O Christ, and we bless thee, because by thy holy cross thou hast redeemed the world. Consider this first fall of Jesus under his cross. His flesh was torn by the scourges, his head was crowned with thorns, and he had lost a great quantity of blood. He was so weakened that he could scarcely walk, and yet he had to carry this great load upon his shoulders. The soldiers struck him rudely, and thus he fell several times in his journey. My beloved Jesus, it is not the weight of the cross, but of my sins. Ah, by the merit of this first fall, deliver me from the misfortune of falling into mortal sin.
Now, as Jesus was making his terrible journey to Golgotha, a man with a cloak hiding his face stood in a darkened doorway, and this man was troubled in his heart. For many things had happened to him in a few hours, things which he did not understand at the time, but now he was beginning to. As oblivious to the crowd's shoutings and jostling, the events of his life darted through his mind. There was that day when Jesus first spoke to him.
Come, follow me, and I will make you fishers of men.
A ghost! A ghost! See? Over there! Walking on the water!
It is I. Take courage. Do not be afraid.
Lord, if it is thou, bid me come to thee over the water.
Come.
I'm afraid. I sink. Lord, save me.
O thou of little faith, why dost thou doubt?
Truly thou art the Son of God.
That was almost 3 years ago, when Peter, grateful that Jesus had reached out and saved him, cried out that he was the Son of God. And there was that strange day in the synagogue at Capharnaum, when the crowd questioned Jesus as to why he had...
I am the living bread that has come down from heaven, and the bread I will give is my flesh for the life of the world. Amen. Amen, I say to you, unless you eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, you shall not have life in you. Does this scandalize you? What then if you should see the Son of Man ascending where he was before? It is the Spirit that gives life. The flesh profits nothing. The words I have spoken to you are spirit and life. But there are some among you who do not believe. Do you also wish to go away?
Lord, to whom shall we go? Thou hast the words of everlasting life. We've come to believe and to know thou art the Christ, the Son of God.
Have I not chosen you, the 12? Yet one of you is a devil.
And there was that day at Caesarea Philippi, when Jesus began to ask them all,
who do men say the Son of Man is?
Some say John the Baptist, and others Elias, and others Jeremiah, or one of the prophets.
But who do you say that I am?
Thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God.
Blessed art thou, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to thee, but my Father in heaven. And I say to you, thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. And I will give thee the key of the kingdom of heaven. And whatever thou shalt bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatever thou shalt loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. You are to tell no one who I am. The Son of Man is to be betrayed into the hands of men, and they will kill him.
No, no.
And on the third day he will rise again.
Far be it from thee, O Lord. This will never happen to thee.
Get thee behind me, Satan. Thou art a scandal to me. For thou dost not mind the things of God, but those of men. If anyone wishes to come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me.
Peter, I can't understand why the Master says we should tell no one who he is.
No doubt he feels the people are not yet prepared to know the truth. I'm not so concerned about that.
Oh, Peter, I never thought I'd see the day when the Master rebuked you so sharply.
John, all I was saying was that since he is the Son of God, no one can kill him. Why, all he would have to do is vanish, or call on the angels to slay those who would harm him.
And I'm sure the others wanted to ask Jesus the same question. But you're the impulsive one, Peter. You always blurt out what's on your mind without stopping.
You mean I should not have asked him?
Oh, Peter, you had no way of knowing he would rebuke you.
I wish now I hadn't asked, John. I don't understand the Master. First he lifts me to the mountain top, calls me Peter the Rock. The next moment he calls me Satan and says I'm a scandal to him.
And now, all the things Jesus had spoken about were coming to pass. The things he spoke of only the night before at the Passover supper when he washed their feet. Things which Peter himself swore could never happen. And yet Jesus had been spat upon, mocked, scourged, and condemned to death, and had taken up his cross, which had fallen under its weight. And Peter wept within himself as the events of the night before flashed through his mind.
Lord, dost thou wash my feet?
What I do, thou knowest not now, but thou shalt know hereafter.
Thou shalt never wash my feet.
If I do not wash thee, thou shalt have no part with me.
Lord, not my feet only, but also my hands, my head.
He who has bathed needs only to wash his feet, and he is clean all over. And you are clean, but not all.
Master.
I do not speak of all of you. I know whom I have chosen, but that the scripture may be fulfilled. He who eats bread with me has lifted up his heel against me. I tell you now before it comes to pass, that when it comes to pass, you may believe that I am he. Amen, amen, I say to you, one of you will betray me.
No, I?
Is it I, Lord?
Lord, who is it?
It is he for whom I shall dip the bread and give to him. What thou dost, do thou quickly. Now is the Son of Man glorified, and God is glorified in him. If God is glorified in him, God will also glorify him in himself, and will glorify him at once. You will seek me, and as I said, where I go you cannot come. So to you also I say it now.
Lord, where art thou going?
Where I am going, thou canst not follow me now, but thou shalt follow later.
Why can I not follow thee now? I will lay down my life for thee.
Simon, Simon, behold, Satan has desired to have you, that he may sift you as wheat. But I have prayed for thee, that thy faith may not fail. And do thou, when once thou hast turned again, strengthen thy brethren.
Lord, with thee I'm ready to go both to prison and to death.
I tell thee, Peter, a cock will not crow this day until thou hast denied 3 times that thou knowest me.
I will lay down my life.
Little children, yet a little while I am with you. A new commandment I give you, that you love one another, that as I have loved you, you also love one another. By this will all men know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another.
And then the man crowded in the doorway recalled the walk from the house to the Garden of Gethsemane, and the words he and John had spoken together as Jesus left the 3 of them.
My soul is sad, even unto death. Wait here and watch while I pray.
Yes, Master. John, I did not understand you at the supper. Surely you did not mean Judas was the betrayer of whom Jesus spoke.
What else could he mean? He said it was the one he would give the morsel, which he did. And then he handed it to Judas and told him to go quickly.
But the others think Judas left to buy supplies, was directed to give money to the poor.
Peter, do you trust Judas?
Is there any reason why I should not?
He holds the purse. He likes money, and there have been times when I thought there should be more money in the purse than there was.
Yet it was Judas who was the first to object when the woman anointed Jesus, saying the nard could be sold and the money given to the poor.
Father, all things are possible to thee. Remove this cup from me.
The Master prays.
Not what I will.
If Judas was taking money from the purse, he would pretend concern for the poor, that he might later say that the purse was low because he had given so much to them.
Perhaps.
Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass away from me. My Father, if this cup cannot pass away unless I drink it, thy will be done. Simon, dost thou sleep? Could you not then watch 1 hour with me? Watch and pray that you may not enter into temptation. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak.
John, James, wake up.
Sleep on now, and take your rest. Behold, the hour is at hand when the Son of Man will be betrayed into the hands of sinners. Rise, let us go. Behold, he who betrays me is at hand. Judas, dost thou betray the Son of Man with a kiss?
Shut up, Lord. Shall we strike with the sword?
Put up that sword into the scabbard, Peter. Shall I not drink the cup that the Father has given me?
And Peter saw himself, as the guards laid hands on Jesus, turn and run from the spot. And all the others did the same. And how, remembering his words that he would suffer prison and death with Jesus, he had turned back and followed at a distance, as Jesus was led to Caiaphas, the high priest, who was seeking to put him to death. And he remembered how firm his courage and resolve was when he entered into the very courtyard and sat with the attendants of those within who were questioning Jesus. And he remembered the fear that stopped his heart as a maidservant who had been watching him closely came and touched him on the shoulder as he sat at the fire.
What would you have of me?
Thou also was with Jesus the Galilean.
I do not know what you say.
This man also was with Jesus of Nazareth.
Away with thee, I do not know the man.
Surely thou art one of them.
I tell thee no.
Even thy speech betrays thee as a Galilean.
Leave me alone, I do not know this man.
Wherefore dost thou tremble and pale at the crow of a rooster? See, they bring him out. It is Jesus. He looks at you as if he knew you. Wherefore does water come from your eyes as from a child? Run after him. He was with Jesus.
I tell thee, Peter, a cock will not crow this day until thou hast denied 3 times that thou knowest me.
I will lay down my life for thee.
The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak.
Lord, with thee I am ready to go, both to prison and to death.
Do you wish to go away? Thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church. Get thee behind me, Satan. Thou art a scandal to me.
Far be it from thee, O Lord. This will never happen to thee. To whom shall we go? Thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. This will never happen to thee.
Shall I not drink the cup that the Father has given to me? Simon, could you not then watch 1 hour with me? Watch and pray. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. One of you is a devil.
John, everything is coming to pass just as he said it would. One of his own betrayed him, and one of his own...
Judas is dead, Peter.
Dead?
Did the priest... He hanged himself with a halter. He tried to give the money back. The priests refused it, and he flung it to the floor, telling them that he had sinned in betraying innocent blood.
Judas betrayed him, and I, whom he called the Rock, denied him. 3 times, John, 3 times. As he said I would.
30 pieces of silver. That was the price they set on him. And Judas, born of Satan, accepted and kissed the master even as he delivered him to the guard.
But I denied him. I denied him. John, am I so much better than Judas?
He said Satan would sift you as wheat. But we're all being sifted. We fell asleep when he asked us to watch. We turned and ran when they seized him.
How brave I was then, swinging the sword and chopping off an ear.
He said something to you then. What was it, Peter?
He told me to put away my sword, that he must drink from his father's cup.
I can't understand it. Why does he allow them to do these terrible things to him?
He has said it has to be. John, where is his mother?
In the house of a friend.
She must not see him. You told her to stay where she is?
Yes. Oh, they're putting the cross on him. We had best leave.
Wait. That man standing over there, who is he?
Oh, I can't see it. Oh, Peter, it's Barabbas.
For a moment I thought it was Judas.
Judas is dead. I've talked to men who saw him hanging.
What of Judas? Would the Lord have forgiven him?
Of course. But Judas was a devil. Better he had not been born.
But you said Judas knew he had sinned when he took back the money.
He asked to be permitted to return the money, not forgiveness of the one he had wronged.
Perhaps in his torment he thought Jesus was incapable of forgiving such a treachery.
Then that iniquity was greater than the betrayal.
What a pity he never asked.
You seem sorry for Judas. You make excuses for him, Peter.
Because a few hours ago I denied Christ 3 times. Now bear that as a cross, the end of my life. Before you now, I beg my Lord's forgiveness and ask for his permission to let me die on the cross.
And now, Peter stood in the doorway and watched as the great cross was lifted from Jesus' back. And he was prodded and lifted to his feet. And there was pity in the eyes of many, and women held their hands in front of their faces and wept silently, for it was forbidden to show sympathy for one sentenced to death. Therefore only those against Jesus were shouting and making a clamor. Glancing to the right, Peter saw a woman making her way through the crowd. And suddenly John stepped out of the crowd and stood in front of the woman, shielding her from the scene in the street.
Mary, go back. Go back. You must not look at him. Please, don't go any further.
No, John. I will see him.
There's nothing you can do.
Still, I must see him.
Mary, don't.
Please, John. Stand aside and let me go.
Go back. Let your memory of him be as when you saw him last. Not beaten and torn and humiliated.
I was with him at his birth, and if this is his final hour, I will be with him at his death. Let me go.
Yes, Mary.
John.
I tried to stop her, Peter.
You should not look upon him as he is.
She's his mother.
Look. Jesus is up. She's going to him. They'll meet. And he has no idea she's here.
I tell you, Peter, there was nothing I could do. Oh, Peter, so many things I've borne witness to, but this is the most sorrowful.
John, if we must bear witness now, is his will. In order that we identify ourselves with him and his suffering. And remember it when our hour comes.
Identify ourselves with him. Perhaps. No, Peter. Something more wonderful and inspiring has happened. Is happening.
What do you mean?
He has identified himself with us, with all men. We who denied him, we who fled, we who bickered over who would be seated next to him, with Barabbas who was freed in his stead, with those two thieves who follow him carrying their crosses. He has made himself man. He's flesh and blood as well as spirit. He bleeds, he groans in pain and falls in the dust under his load. In order to be an example to man, he has become one of us.
Now, as Jesus was lifted from the dust and the cross put on his back, he groaned from the weight of it. The soldiers prodded him with their spears and turned him toward the hill of Golgotha. He could not see well, for his eyes were caked with red mud. But a woman was standing in the street in front of him, and her arms were outstretched to receive him. He took another faltering step, and behold, he knew it was Mary, his mother.
Presents the Catholic Hour. A group of the Paulist choristers open the Catholic Hour singing Vittoria's Popule Meus. Monsignor Fulton J. Sheen of the Catholic University of America will now deliver the 13th in his series of 17 addresses on the general subject peace. His discourse today is entitled Trust in God's Plan. I present Monsignor Sheen.
Friends, the mere fact that we ask the question, why does God permit this war, is in itself an indication of want of trust, either in the wisdom or the goodness of God. How explain this want of trust? Generally, it is due to a refusal to admit, first, the possibility that God knows more than I and is better than I. And secondly, that my dignity is not lowered by submitting myself to his wisdom and his goodness, even when they go against me. The ultimate manifestation of pride is self-deification, setting oneself up as God. That is why the intellectually proud man will attempt to convince you of his omniscience. He steals the mantle of God's wisdom and drapes it about his own shoulders. His favorite trick in conversation is to make you think he knows everything. The result is that today we have information, but not wisdom. Information is uncorrelated bits of knowledge, which, like a broken egg, can never be composed into a complete philosophy of life. Wisdom, on the contrary, is the knowledge of truth, human and divine. Information and quiz programs have indoctrinated us into believing that the man who knows the colors of 3 beards mentioned in Hamlet is wise, and that if you do not know similar patches of information, you really ought to dissolve into an emotional crumble. True wisdom, on the contrary, correlates information into causes and equips itself to answer such questions as, what is the purpose of life? Why are we here? And where are we going? A little child who knows the first page of the Catechism, which sums up the wisdom of Aristotle and the best thinking of Western culture, knows more than all those university professors who define religion, as an Ohio professor does, as the projection into the roaring loom of time of a unified complex of psychical values, whatever that means. The salvation of modern man lies not in the pride of what he knows, but in humility concerning how little he knows. His omniscience must give way to nescience. Instead of feeling he knows everything, he must come a little closer to the truth that he really knows nothing. His belief that he knows all must surrender to the humiliating truth that someone is wiser than he. For if a man knows all, how can God teach him anything? If there is no law above him, how can he ever be wrong? If the mind is filled with self, how fill it with the wisdom of God? Not until we become humble can there be trust. For an illustration of this, turn to the book of Job. There was once a man in the land of Hus, whose name was Job. And that man was simple and upright, fearing God and avoiding evil. As the story is unfolded, Job was gradually divested of all the things that clothe the spirit of a man, those things on which a man leans for help and strength. First he lost his wealth, and then he lost his children, 7 sons and 3 daughters. Next, his health, then the love and consolation of his wife. And Job's only reflection was, if we have received good things at the hands of God, why should we not receive evil? We see now the naked spirit of the man. There were only two things that were left: God and himself. God he never denied. Himself he could not escape. But between God and himself there seemed to be no place of meeting, no reconciliation, for here was a man who was suffering, but not because he had done any wrong. And Job begins to ask questions. Why did I not die in the womb? Why received upon the knees? Why suckled at the breasts? Why is light given to him that is in misery, and life to them that are in bitterness of soul? And there came to Job, and he asked these questions, a comforter, whose name was Elihu, who talked like a university professor who never understood his philosophy well enough to tell it in simple language. And he began a long speech on the justice and the power of God. Never before in the history of the world was any speech cut short more abruptly. For it was not man but God who broke in upon the intellectual droolings of that man, and out of the whirlwind God asked, "Who is this that wrappeth up sentences in unskillful words?" How would you feel if you sat alongside of the bed of a sick friend, offering him consolation out of the depths of your great wisdom, and then have God come along and cut short your consolation and your words by asking a question like that? But now that God appears on the scene, should we not expect an answer to those questions which Job asked? Certainly, if a Broadway dramatist were putting on this play, he would have God step onto the stage, answer all of the questions of Job, solve all the problems of evil, or else ring up a cash register and give away a gold mine. Everything in the universe would click. There would be no loose edges. We would know all when we left the theater. But the God of heaven's way does not do things like the God of Broadway. When the true God appeared on the stage, what does he do? Here was the supreme expert on the supreme quiz program. Information, please. And God is here to give it. But lo and behold, instead of answering the questions of Job, God begins to ask Job questions. Instead of giving information, he dispensed wisdom, and this is how God began. Gird up thy loins like a man, Job, and I will ask thee. Answer thou me. Where wast thou when I laid the foundations of the earth? Tell me if thou hast understanding. Upon what are its bases grounded? Or who laid the cornerstone thereof? Who shut up the sea with doors, when it broke forth as issuing out of a womb? Have the gates of death been opened to thee? And hast thou seen its stalks and doors? Where is the way where light dwelleth? And where is the place of darkness? Didst thou know thou wouldst be born? And dost thou know the number of thy days? Hast thou entered into the storehouses of the snow, or hast thou beheld the treasures of the hail? Who is the Father of rain? Who begot the drops of dew? Out of whose womb came the ice? And the frost from heaven, who hath gendered it? Shalt thou be able to join together the shining stars, the Pleiades, or canst thou stop the turning about of the Arcturus? Canst thou bring forth the day star in its time, and make the evening star to rise upon the children of earth? Who hath put wisdom in the heart of man, or who gave the cock understanding? Will the eagle mount up at thy command, and make her nest in high places? Shall he that contendeth with God be so easily silenced? Surely he that reproveth God ought to answer him. That was the speech of God. And in that whole speech of God, no reference was made to the suffering of Job. No explanation was offered for anything that had transpired. But God did one thing. He brought Job face to face with the universe in which he lived. Asked him if he were equal to creating it, to governing it even to the fall of a sparrow, and made him see that he was a very small part of a vast and mighty whole. And when God finished asking Job questions, Job realized that the questions of God were more satisfying than the answers of man. That the true nations into whose abyss he was driven was really the beginning of wisdom. Job saw now that he had been asking only one question. How could his individual, personal problem be solved? And God's answer was that his question was but one of a million others. And until he could understand the answer to those million questions, he never could understand the answer to that one. And like Job, none of us can understand how our own individual problems fit into the great general plan of God. It is easy for us to fall into the error of thinking that the laws of the universe should be suspended or interrupted every time a good man gets in trouble. If the business of religion was merely to get the religious out of trouble, religion would cease to be religion. It would become a kind of insurance policy, which would be the end of religion for the simple reason that it would be faithless. A mouse that crawls into a grand piano and has its gnawing of the keys disturbed by a great artist entertaining an audience with a Mozart or a Chopin must in its own puny little brain think that the universe is without a plan. And the spider which weaves its web on the girder of a great steel beam that is lifted into a bridge cannot possibly understand how its own little plan for catching flies must give way to the engineer's greater plan of transportation. Tapestries are woven not from the front, but from the back, and it is only when the last thread is drawn that we see the completed design. As Father Tab put it, my life is but a weaving between my God and me. I may but choose the colors. He worketh skillfully. Full oft he chooses sorrow, and I, in foolish pride, forget he sees the upper and I the underside. We live in the midst of evil days, it is true. But it is not because God is not good. It is because the world has not been good. About 1/3 of the civilized world today has crucified him. Another third has abandoned him. And the other third, while living good lives as individuals, has not yet had enough influence to affect the political, economic, and moral life in which they live. And this war, let us be sure about it, is not for freedom any more than the last war was for democracy. It is for something more than that. It is rather a titanic struggle to decide whether in the next few centuries we shall live by the moral law rooted in God, or in the law of force rooted in Satan. Whether we know it or not, we are fighting for a moral order. Not just because we willed it in God, but because our enemies, thank God, have forced us into that position. It may take some time before we realize the greatness of our cause. We may first have to lose something of what we have gained. But let it not be said that while unconsciously fighting for a morality rooted in God, we consciously abandon trust in God, who alone can save. Does this make the plea for a daily holy hour for Jews and Protestants and Catholics any clearer? Do you not see that unless the Jews and the Protestants, according to the light of their conscience, while praying for the truth, and the Catholics in the fullness of their faith and the real presence of our Lord on the altar, unless they make public daily profession of their trust in God, we as a nation may lose the moral objective that justifies this war. And we may even lose the God who gave us peace. And anyone who would like a holy hour book of meditations to assist him in this hour of meditations each day may write for it, and we will gladly send it to him. Last week I received about 70 sheets of paper on which there were written tens of thousands of little crosses or dashes, each of which indicated a prayer to Our Lady, Queen of Peace. They were sent to me by the 3rd and 4th grade children of St. Peter's School in Delano, Minnesota. These little children are the spiritual MacArthurs of America. The moral arsenals from which our country will draw its best citizens in years to come. And as adults, our duty is greater. And greater because guns and bullets alone will not win this war. We need them, certainly. But we need more a realization that some of our enemies have the devil on their side. And man is no match for the devil. That is why we will either return to God or we will perish. Lose not then your trust in God. He has not failed. This is a time of probation. When you go to a mystery play in the theater, do you walk out in the first act because one of the good characters is killed, or because evil is momentarily victorious? Do you judge the play by the first few lines? If you believe the dramatist has a plot, why do you not give God credit for having a plot? Perhaps this war is so far only in the first scene of the first act. As in it we witness the bitter fruits of our complacency and the onward march of our enemies. We may yet have to sit through a few more acts before we become wise like the prodigal, or before we become humble. Patience, then, patience. He that would have cake out of wheat must tarry the grinding. What wound ever healed except by degrees? And our world is wounded. If you must give up your faith in everything else, in credit, in mass production and in wealth, but surrender not your faith in Him alone who can save. Say then to your soul, my soul, sit then a patient looker on. Judge not the play before the play is done. The plot hath many changes. Every day speaks a new scene. The last act crowns the play. O Lord Jesus Christ, who in thy mercy heareth the prayers of sinners, pour forth, we beseech thee, all grace and blessing upon our country and its citizens. We pray in particular for the President, for our Congress, for all our soldiers, for all who defend us in ships, whether on the seas or in the skies, for all who are suffering the hardships of war. We pray for all who are in peril or in danger. Bring us all after the troubles of this life into the haven of peace, and reunite us all together forever, O dear Lord, in thy glorious heavenly kingdom.
The address you have just heard was entitled Trust in God's Plan, and was delivered by Monsignor Fulton J. Sheen of the Catholic University of America. This was the 13th in Monsignor Sheen's series of 17 addresses on peace. A copy of today's talk, or of the Holy Hour booklet described by Monsignor Sheen, may be obtained by writing to the National Council of Catholic Men, Washington, D.C., or to the station to which you are now listening. Next we hear the hymn, Ave Maria, Thou Virgin and Mother.
Thank you.
Next Sunday at this time, Monsignor Sheen will deliver another address in this series entitled Faith in Wartime. Your announcer is John Patrick Costello. The Catholic Hour has been presented by NBC in cooperation with the National Council of Catholic Men as a public service and originated in New York. This is the National Broadcasting Company.
This is the Hour of St. Francis. One minute you're on top of the world. You've got everything. Good job, nice family, friends. But, well, it's like standing on a glass mountain. When this thing hits you and you start sliding, you go down. You go down so easy and so gradual that you hardly know you're slipping until you hit bottom. I'm Harry Conroy. I had plenty of danger signals that should have warned me. The first came 7 years ago. It's the morning after a big party, so, well, I'm jittery. I finally decide I'll have to ask Grace to telephone my office.
Shall I tell your secretary that you're taking the usual cure for a cold?
Oh, Grace, don't start that sarcasm again.
Harry, I'm not being sarcastic. I'm just being sensible. How long do you think you're going to get away with this?
What's all the excitement about? If one little shot will fix me up so I can work better, why shouldn't I take it?
1 or 2 or 3. Harry, you're on it all the time now. Look, let's face it. I can smell it all day long and all night, too. You can't chew enough gum to kill it.
Oh, don't read me the riot act, will you? I've got a rotten headache. I only take a couple when I'm feeling low. I get wound up, and it helps me to relax.
You never used to keep a bottle in the bathroom closet.
Oh.
You never used to go overboard at every party. Now you act so silly, I could crown you with something. Like last night.
Oh, what did I do last night that was silly?
You don't even remember.
Of course I do. I remember everything that happened.
Including your imitation of Bob Hollister's limp?
Oh, that was just for laughs.
Well, it certainly was in bad taste. You know, Bob got his leg injured in the war. You were just being downright mean because he got a promotion at the office and you didn't. Oh, I was so ashamed. I could have died.
That Hollister guy gets on my nerves. I've got more brains in my little finger than he has in his whole head.
Yes, but he buckles down and he uses his brains. He doesn't try to talk people into thinking he's a genius.
Oh, I can work rings around Bob Hollister any day.
Well, I'd like to see you.
All right. I'll prove it. From now on, I'm buckling down. No more clowning, no more going overboard. I'm not going to take another drink. Not one. Not until I get my promotion.
Oh, Harry. Harry, I hope so. Darling, I don't mean to nag, but sometimes I get afraid.
A month later, I get my promotion. It's been a long, thirsty month, but, well, I've stuck it out. A couple of fellows in the office invite me out for a celebration, and I've certainly earned it. But I'm going to be careful. I say, better just give me a beer. See, that's watching it. Beer never hurt anybody. I have 3 beers. That's an awful lot of liquid for what you get out of it. One of the fellows, Tom Lawrence, starts kidding me. Pal, you look like you're drowning. How about a little chaser? Well, that sounds all right to me. I'm getting waterlogged. And after all, this is my night off. I've proved that I can stop any time I want to.
Harry, how do I know where you've been for the past 2 days? All I know is that a taxi driver brought you to the door at 1 o'clock this morning.
Thanks for wiring me the money to get home, Grace.
Harry, what happened? You promised when you got this job.
Well, I just happened to meet George Raymond. I mentioned I had a little time between trains, and he asked me to have a drink. And I said no, but I'd buy him one, see? And, well, then I thought it wouldn't be very friendly to let him drink alone. All right, Grace, go get a job if you want to, but don't try to say it's because you're lonesome and you get nervous staying around the house all day. All right, then go ahead and say it. I make you nervous staying around the house all day. I'm sitting in a quiet little bar late at night. Lucky Grace is working. Doesn't have to ask me for money. She won't give me any when I'm out of a job, though. She won't even hardly talk to me. I think to myself, well, another double whiskey and then I'll go home. Yeah. Where's my wallet? Here it is, but I'm broke. I got paid yesterday, and now I'm broke. Where'd my money go? I had to pay back a couple of fellas. Well, I've got 2 pints stashed away at home. Lucky Grace hadn't thought of looking in the coal chute. She found all my other hiding places. So I start home. I haven't had enough to put me in the usual fog. The house, I try to open the door very quietly.
Oh, Harry. What's the matter? What are you looking at, Harry?
Grace, you...
Oh, I just had a couple. What's the matter with that? I'm celebrating.
Celebrating?
Yeah, it's our wedding anniversary. There isn't any candy or flowers. There aren't any presents. There isn't even a husband. But there's plenty of this around, if you know where to look.
Grace, I forgot.
I didn't forget, Harry. I remembered. As a matter of fact, that's all I've been doing tonight. Remembering. If you don't care, why should I? I don't care about anything. Come on, Harry. Have a drink.
In the morning, we're both hungover. I'm sick and disgusted, and I'm jolted hard. I can't figure out what got into Grace. She snaps out of it faster than I do and goes off to work. Oh, well, maybe she was just putting on an act, trying to scare me. Grace, it's 7 o'clock. Where have you been?
Oh, well, we work late.
In how many cocktail bars? Look, you ought to know why I never take you out to parties anymore. You ought to know why I can't ask anybody to the house. Look at this place. Look at you.
You go away and stay 2 whole days and I'm sick. There's nobody to take care of me. And then you come back with a hangover and you get mad at me because I have a cold and I had to take something.
I do everything I can to stop her. She just laughs and says, why don't you do something about it? I try and I can't. I get desperate. I have to keep one working somehow, keeping up appearances. I use all the tricks, Turkish bath, bromides, aspirin, 2 years of that. Then comes the night I find Grace huddled in a corner in the front room couch.
Hello.
Come on, Grace. I'll help you upstairs.
Oh.
What's the matter?
Nothing.
Nothing but the usual.
Harry, I'm going to have a baby.
A baby? Oh, that's wonderful. That's great.
I can't.
Grace, don't say that.
Us with a baby. In this house. A baby with you and me.
I finally get her into bed. When she falls asleep, I have time to think. A baby. I look at her. What kind of a mother will she make? What kind of a father will I be? The 2 of us. We can't even take care of ourselves. We're killing ourselves, and we can't stop it. Oh, God, to be clean and sound again. Oh, God, help me, help Grace. I see something now as clear as the stars. I'm beat. I'm done for. I'm licked. I kneel down on the floor, and I bow my head on the windowsill. How long is it since I've prayed? Now I've got to pray. Oh, God. God, I've been a fool. Forgive me. I don't deserve it, but forgive me this time. Look, God, I'll clear my conscience. I'll go back to church. Help me, God. I can't do it by myself. I can't do anything by myself. Oh, God, don't ever let me forget that.
Harry.
Grace, how do you feel?
I'm sick, Harry. I feel so sick. Harry, I'm going to have a baby.
Yeah, you told me that a little while ago.
I didn't want to tell you when I was... When I was like that, I didn't mean to drink so much, Harry. But I was scared.
Oh,
Scared.
yeah, there's nothing to be afraid of.
I won't do it again.
No.
I hate it. I won't take another drink again.
Yeah, I'm going to stop, too. Look, Grace, we'll help each other,
How?
see? We'll pray.
Pray?
Yeah, we'll pray. See, something just hit me between the eyes. Grace, we can't get out of this by ourselves.
Oh, Harry, maybe you can't, but I can. I'm going to be all right. I have the baby to think about now. That's all I need. The baby.
Every day, I find myself hanging on by a prayer. Every minute I'm ready to fall, but I don't. I pray, and a power comes to me. Helping Grace is another thing. She's broken her promise twice, but, well, I'm sure she can work things out in her own way. That is, I'm sure until the evening I come home with an armful of presents for the baby. It's 6 months now. Grace is standing at the head of the stairs. She's weaving back and forth.
Harry, you're late. Where have you been, Harry?
Grace, you stay there. I'm coming right up, honey.
I'll come downstairs if I want you.
Stay there.
This is my house, and I'm sick of you telling me what to do.
The doctor said we would have had a son. Grace lies in the hospital bed. And I sit beside her.
I didn't mean to, Harry. I didn't mean to hurt him. I wanted him.
All right. It was my fault, Grace.
No.
Anything you did, it was my fault, honest. See, I started it. This is the way it ends.
Harry, what am I going to do? I try to stop. I want to stop, but I can't.
Grace, I can't save you. Only God can do that.
I didn't want to believe it.
I know. It hurt your pride. But, Grace, we've got to be put on our knees before we can understand. Well, Grace and I are starting over again. But we're not doing it by ourselves. Nobody can. Yes, it's like trying to climb a glass mountain. You can't ever do it by yourself. You have to reach up and catch hold of God's hand. And then you'll make it. This episode of the Hour of St. Francis, entitled The Glass Mountain, featured Alice Drake and Patrick McGeehan, and was brought to you by the Third Order of St. Francis, whose members with St. Francis pray, Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. And where there is sadness, joy. O divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. Amen. For a copy of this program, The Glass Mountain, or the Peace Prayer of St. Francis, write to the Hour of St. Francis in care of this station.
Am Israel.
And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Command the children of Israel that they bring unto thee pure oil olive, beaten for the light, to cause the lamps to burn continually in the tabernacle of the congregation, and it shall be a statute forever in your generation.
The Eternal Light. The National Broadcasting Company and its affiliated independent stations present Chapter 20 of The Eternal Light. This public service program is prepared under the auspices of the Jewish Theological Seminary of America. Our story today, written by Morton Wishengrad, features Charlotte Holland as Rebecca Gratz and Edwin Cooper as narrator. Following the dramatic portion of the program, you will hear a talk by Dr. Alexander M. Dushkin.
I, Rebecca Gratz, the city of Philadelphia, being in sound health of body and mind and advanced in years, declare this to be my last will and testament. I commit my spirit to the God who gave it, relying on his mercy and redeeming love, and believing with a fine and perfect faith in the religion of my fathers. Shaviti Adonai Lenegdi Talmid. I have kept the Lord before me ever.
And Rebecca Gratz died in a good old age and full of years and was gathered to her people. My name is Washington Irving. I knew Rebecca. You know her also, for she has not died. Listen, I shall tell you a story. It was in the month of August in the year 1817. I had gone abroad and had come to Scotland. And there I found myself with my friend, Mr. Walter Scott. And my friend Scott was perplexed.
Irving, it does not go well.
The book, you mean?
Aye, the book. It's clear in my mind, and yet, when I come to set it down on paper, it will not unravel.
Put it aside, then. Turn to something else, Scott.
No, I cannot do that. It will be a good romance, I think, and yet it wants something.
Does it?
Aye, it does. Contrast. Irving, what could be a greater contrast to a story of the Crusades than the introduction of a character of the Hebrew faith?
I see, Scott. A Jacob or an Isaac to set against your Ivanhoe. A Rachel or a Leah to set against your Rowena.
Exactly.
I know no Rachel, but...
Yes, Irving?
In Philadelphia, there is a Rebecca.
Aye?
Rebecca Gratz is her name. Scott, it may be that she's a pattern for your character.
Maybe so, Irving. Tell me about her.
We sat together in the castle of Abbotsford, Walter Scott and I told him what I knew of the story of Rebecca Gratz. It was a fitful story, pieced together from fragments I knew, but he listened intently. And when I had finished, he lit his pipe again and was silent. I left Scotland. In the following months, I learned with pleasure that Scott was to receive a baronetcy from His Majesty, and I'd almost entirely forgotten the incident at Abbotsford, when 2 years later, a package came for me.
I took the liberty of unwrapping it, sir.
Oh, thank you, Henry.
Begging your pardon, Mr. Irving, but that's a queer name for a book, Ivanhoe.
Is it, Henry?
That it is, sir. Oh, only I forgot. This note came with it.
Oh, yes.
Oh, bad news, sir?
Oh, no, Henry, not at all. A note from Sir Walter. My dear Irving, how do you like your Rebecca? Does the Rebecca I have pictured here compare well with the pattern you gave me? What do you make of that, Henry?
Sounds like a message in code, Mr. Eving.
No, this is clear enough. Thank you, Henry. I'll ring if I need you.
Very good, sir.
I read Sir Walter's Ivanhoe. Yes. And I placed the pattern of Rebecca of York over the pattern of Rebecca Gratz of Philadelphia. A curious exercise. It made me think and remember. Remember the time a great happiness and a greater sorrow entered her life. Come in.
Mr. Samuel Ewing?
Won't you come in, please?
Oh, you're younger than I thought.
Try not to be so disappointed.
Oh, I'm not disappointed, only I expected to find...
Samuel Ewing, barrister.
Yes.
Please sit down, Miss Gratz.
You know my name. Oh, thank you.
Of course I know your name. Miss Rebecca Gratz, Secretary of the Female Association for the Relief of Women and Children in Reduced Circumstances. Oh, I'm terribly sorry. It's absolutely inexcusable. But you must admit, Miss Gratz, it does sound funny.
Well, as you say it, Mr. Ewing, it does.
Miss Gratz, how do you say it?
The Female Association for the Relief of Women and Children in Reduced Circumstances.
You see what I mean?
Yes.
I couldn't help it, Miss Gratz. Forgive me. You know, virtue isn't such a bad thing.
It's very kind of you to say so, sir.
Now, that isn't what I mean. Virtue's all right, but why must it be so humorless? Women and children in reduced circumstances. Why couldn't you just say poor?
Oh. Well, sir, I'm afraid that I am responsible for selecting the name.
You? You don't look like... Well, you...
Thank you, sir.
Why did you select such a name?
Mr. Ewing, do you read Scripture?
Well...
Scripture does not say, happy is he who giveth to the poor.
Oh, I thought it did.
No. Happy is he who wisely considereth the poor.
Is there a difference, Miss Gratz?
I believe so. Giving isn't the essential thing.
Isn't it?
No. Giving with delicacy of feeling. That's the essential thing. I thought the word poor or the word needy would be more humiliating than reduced circumstances. I'm not quite sure now.
I'm sorry I laughed. You'll excuse it, won't you?
Of course.
Now, how can I help you?
Well, we need legal advice, sir. We wish to found an orphanage.
I'll do whatever I can, Miss Gratz.
Thank you, Mr. Ewing.
Rebecca Gratz and Samuel Ewing. In this meeting for them, a beginning of happiness and sorrow. They met frequently thereafter. They did not seek the meetings out, and yet somehow they were drawn together. Once Rebecca Gratz visited the church where Samuel Ewing's father was pastor. And once on a summer day, he found her standing idly outside the congregation Mikveh Israel. I've missed you, Rebecca.
Have you, Samuel?
I hope you're not taking your legal matters to anyone else.
You seem very anxious to hold a client who pays you nothing.
I am, Rebecca. Is that your cantor rehearsing?
Yes. Listen. It's an ancient Sephardic hymn.
Sephardic?
Yes. This is a Sephardic congregation founded by people driven from Spain in 1492.
My grandfather was driven from England. I suppose America meant a good deal to grandfather. And to your father.
More than you know, Samuel. Let me show you how much. Look closely at this wall. What do you see?
Just a wall?
Well, look again. Look sharply. You see here on the top, that crack here?
Oh, yes. Yes, I do see something. What is it?
Once it was a door. A secret passage ran from the altar through this wall.
Door?
Mm-hmm. You see, they didn't know what to expect in America. They knew only what they had found in Spain.
Oh, yes.
So they built a secret passage against a time of persecution. And then, when they had lived here only a few years, they walled the door in, just as you see.
Poor devils.
Oh, no, you mustn't pity them, Samuel. They were very proud and stiff-necked. Sometimes I think they preferred persecution to pity.
I'm glad they found their rights and their liberties here.
They didn't want that either.
Eh?
Neither rights nor liberty.
No?
No. Only right and liberty.
I see what you mean. Rebecca, you should have been a lawyer.
No, Samuel.
No, you are perverse. Why do you say no?
Well...
Yes?
Well, if I had been a lawyer, perhaps I would never have met you.
Rebecca, it's time for candle blessing.
Yes, Mother.
Blessed art thou, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who hast sanctified us by thy commandments and commanded us to kindle the Sabbath light. Rebecca, you love him, don't you?
I think so, Mother. I didn't know it was so plain.
I love you, too. That's why I could tell.
Thank you, Mother. What do you want me to do?
Only what you think is right, Rebecca. But try to remember that for us the house is a synagogue. A father and mother are high priests in a house of worship. We trust you, Rebecca.
Sometimes I wish you didn't. This way, it's as though the fate of the entire congregation was on my shoulders.
Isn't it? Mm-hmm. Everyone must answer these questions for himself. It isn't easy, Rebecca. But you will have to find the answer by yourself.
And even while Rebecca was pondering the answer to the question, Miriam Gratz, her mother, died on a Friday without the notice of an hour's illness. She was an excellent woman and perhaps as much prepared to meet death unwarned as any human being could be. Yet for the living, it was a grievous loss. My father asked me to give you all his sympathy.
It's good to feel surrounded by friends. Everything is to be endured save loneliness.
Your dress, Rebecca, it's torn.
Not torn, Samuel, cut. A cut to the width of 4 inches in the garments of the mourners.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know.
Don't be sorry. You know what the rabbi said to me as he was about to cut the garment? He said, "Stand up, Rebecca. Stand up to meet your affliction."
Rebecca, I can't bear it any longer.
No, you mustn't speak, please.
But all I'm trying to tell you...
Don't you think I know, Samuel? I think a woman always knows when a man loves her. Even my mother knew.
Did she, Rebecca? What did she say?
She said I had to decide for myself.
Have you?
Yes, Samuel. I've decided. I've decided that I love you with all my heart. And that I can't marry you.
But you love me.
Yes. But I can't help that. I can't help the fact that now on the Sabbath I shall be the one to light the candles.
I won't press you, Rebecca. I won't press you, but I can't accept your answer. Shouldn't have spoken now. But, Rebecca, I'm going to speak again. There are those who can be eloquent on their own suffering, and for them the pain is mitigated, for they console themselves with expression. But for Rebecca Gratz and Samuel Ewing, there was acquaintance with a mute, blunt-edged grief that tears the heart. They met, they sat together, they looked at one another, and they departed. And when they met again and when they spoke, there was still silence. It could not last that way. They knew it. On a raw day when the sky was a single cloud to the horizon, Rebecca Gratz and Samuel Ewing met once again. Rebecca, I'm speaking now. I'm asking you to marry me.
Samuel, I can't abandon my faith.
I'm asking you again, Rebecca.
Samuel, The sun will go down by itself without my assistance. But my faith depends on me.
Well?
Don't you see? Mine is an ancient tradition, so ancient, Samuel. Don't you think it's worth preserving?
It separates us.
Not as human beings.
I hate things that separate people.
Do you hate your own religion? It separates you from me.
I don't want to argue, Rebecca. We're alike.
Oh, Sam. Where in the world are two things alike? Are there two blades of grass? Are there two grains of sand exactly alike? And yet, is the world worse off for these differences?
Rebecca, stop being a philosopher. I want to marry you.
I can't.
I knew it would be like this. I hoped for weeks and months. But I knew. It's like the thing you told me when your mother died and they cut your garment for the time of mourning.
You remember that?
Yes, Rebecca, I remembered. Rise and stand to meet affliction. Go forth to meet it.
Samuel.
I thought of everything, spoke to my father, racked my head for a solution. If you won't enter my faith, I could...
Enter mine. Samuel, you're as steeped in your father's tradition as I am in mine. You would never be happy, no. A Jew may not proselytize. To seek converts is forbidden. I remember a phrase I heard from the rabbi. The righteous of all nations shall have part in the rewards of the future world.
You should marry a rabbi, Rebecca.
Oh, no, don't be bitter. I can stand anything but not your bitterness.
I've made you cry. I'm sorry. When your eyes are wet this way, it's like the shining of your Sabbath candles. All right, Rebecca. All right. I'll take you back to your house. And Samuel Ewing returned Rebecca Gratz to the house she had never left. There is no wound so deep in the living flesh that it cannot heal. The years passed, and Samuel Ewing remained her friend. Then, in the year 1810, he came to see her.
Congratulations, Samuel.
You know?
Yes, Elizabeth told me. I'm glad you're marrying my friend.
I told her about you.
You shouldn't have done that.
It was no more than right. I'm very fond of Elizabeth. I hope I'll be a good husband.
You will be.
You'll come to the wedding. I've always wanted Rebecca Gratz to be at my wedding.
Yes, I'll come, Samuel. Of course I'll come.
Does he really look like me, Rebecca?
It's hard to tell. I should say he looks more like a vegetable.
He does, doesn't he? Elizabeth and I, well, we thank you for the gift. He'll be handsome in it.
I have another gift for him.
Oh?
May I, Samuel?
Yes, of course. Look, he likes to be held.
Yes. When I was a child and my father had returned from the synagogue on Sabbath, he would place his hands on our heads and bless us this way. The Lord bless thee and keep thee. The Lord make his face to shine upon thee and be gracious unto thee. The Lord lift up his countenance upon thee and give thee peace.
Thank you, Rebecca. Rebecca, why don't you marry?
Have you seen our new rabbi?
Yes. Does he want to marry you, Rebecca?
I don't know.
You'll forgive my saying so, but Rabbi Leeser isn't a very handsome man.
You know, I'm a very tactless woman. Once I wondered aloud how so much wisdom could be entrusted to such an ugly body.
Oh, that was tactless.
Yes.
What did your rabbi say?
He smiled. Then he asked, Rebecca, he said, what kind of vessel does your father keep his wine in? A common nursing vessel, I answered. He smiled again. Why doesn't he keep the wine in a container of precious metal?
Why, it gets sour.
That's what I told him.
I suppose he has an answer.
An answer from the Talmud. Wisdom is safest with ugliness. For beauty is a provocation to vanity, and vanity is the enemy of wisdom.
Well, will you marry him?
No, Samuel. I'm an old spinster, set in my ways, fond of my own privacy. I'll just stay as I am and hope for the best.
That isn't good enough, Rebecca.
Thank you. But there's the orphanage and the nursery, and I'm thinking of organizing a Sunday school. It isn't much, Samuel, but it will keep me.
It was like Rebecca Gratz not to run away, to seek no retreat from life. She entered into all the struggles of her society and her world. And somehow she became purified in the moral climate she created. She was a seed planted in fertile soil, and her roots were a faith in her tradition. And many hundreds of miles away, Sir Walter Scott sensed this from my story. Whatever else Ivanhoe is, Sir Walter has written her enduring monument in the last chapter of his novel.
Among our people, since the time of Abraham, have been women who contributed their thoughts to heaven and their actions to works of kindness to men, tending the sick, feeding the hungry, and relieving the distressed. Among these will Rebecca be numbered. Say this to thy Lord, should he chance to inquire after the fate of her whose life he saved. Rebecca of York and Rebecca of Philadelphia. Centuries separated, yet the same. And in the fullness of her years, Rebecca Gratz died and was gathered to her people.
I, Rebecca Gratz, being in sound health of body and mind and advanced in years, declare this to be my last will and testament. I commit my spirit to the God who gave it, relying on his mercy and redeeming love, and believing with a fine and perfect faith in the religion of my fathers. Shaviti Adonai, Lenegdi Tamid. I have kept the Lord before me ever.
Copies of the script you have just heard, including the talk which follows immediately, may be obtained free of cost by writing to The Eternal Light, 3080 Broadway, New York, 27, New York. And now we present Dr. Alexander M. Dushkin, Executive Director of the Jewish Education Committee of New York. Dr. Dushkin.
As we Jews of America become increasingly conscious of ourselves as a community with historic roots in this land, we begin to focus our attention upon the heroic figures who have made American Jewish history. In our Hall of Fame, no small place will be assigned to the noble role played by Jewish women, such as Rebecca Gratz, Emma Lazarus, Rebecca Kohat, and the greatest of them, Henrietta Zoe. Rebecca Gratz lived in the formative period of American history, from 1781 to 1869. Hers was a family of builders who shared in the making of America. Her voluminous, gracefully written letters cannot comment intimately on American history in the making. Her personal influence and charm are best indicated by the place accorded her in English literature. For it was in a broad love of humanity, her deep understanding tolerance, her proud and courageous Jewish piety, that Walter Scott found the trace for immortalizing his Rebecca of Ivanhoe. But Rebecca Gratz will be remembered most for what she herself achieved as a pioneer in American Jewish education. As organizer of the Hebrew Sunday School Society in 1838, and as a superintendent for over 25 years, she was probably the first American-born Jew to devote herself professionally to the work of teaching Jewish children. Hitherto, all the teachers of American Jewry had come from Europe, and in their teachings they followed the classic Hebraic tradition as expressed in the Orthodox ritual either of the Spanish-Portuguese Jews or of the German Jews. Rebecca Gratz came under the influence of the American Protestant Sunday School Union. in those days a benevolent organization for the education of the poor. She changed the conduct of Jewish education by teaching the Bible in English rather than in Hebrew, and by teaching on Sundays, the only day that poor children were then free from work and could, as she put it, learn religion and good manners. But while originally a benevolent school for the poor, the Sunday school soon became the normal religious school for American children, especially when the rapid growth of the public school system made supplementary religious education necessary. Today, in our generation, the Sunday school is considered as inadequate educational instrument. It offers no real solution to the problem of providing religious cultural training to American children. Both Christian and Jewish educators are dissatisfied with it and are struggling to supplement it, or else to find more satisfactory types of religious schooling, which shall teach the historic religions adequately and yet not undo what the common public school system and the separation of state and church have achieved in the shaping of the national character of America. While the solution which Rebecca Gratz and her generation offered no longer satisfies us, we are nevertheless guided by the same basic quest, which is to give our children a complete and integrated education as Americans and as Jews.
Thank you, Dr. Dushkin. The Eternal Light is written by Morton Wishengrad. The original music is composed by Henry Brandt and conducted by Milton Catons. The soloist is Cantor Robert H. Siegel of the Beacon Street Temple, Brookline, Massachusetts. Featured today were Charlotte Holland as Rebecca Gratz and Edwin Cooper as the narrator. The entire production was under the direction of Ira Avery. For free copies of the script, write to The Eternal Light, 3080 Broadway, New York 27, New York. This program is a public service presentation of the National Broadcasting Company and its affiliated independent stations in cooperation with the Jewish Theological Seminary of America. This program came to you from our Radio City studios in New York. This is the National Broadcasting Company.